Have you ever worked the late night shift, believing the quiet would bring peace and easy hours? Let me share a story that will make you question every solitary moment you've ever spent alone in the dark. By the end, you'll never look at the night the same way again. This isn't just another spooky tale. It's the harrowing experience of someone who thought the worst they'd face at work was boredom. But one night, something happened that defied explanation, something that clung to them long after dawn broke. If you've ever felt like unseen eyes were watching you from the shadows, this story will resonate with a fear you've tried to ignore. Sam was your typical night shift worker, practical, grounded, and utterly skeptical of anything remotely supernatural. No fear of ghosts, no belief in curses. The paranormal was just fodder for cheesy horror movies. Working the graveyard shift at a convenience store? Easy money. No daytime traffic, no managers hovering, and plenty of time to themselves. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and left Sam with a sense of freedom. The store itself was as ordinary as they come. Harsh fluorescent lights cast a sterile glow over neatly stocked aisles of snacks and canned goods. The faint scent of lemon-scented cleaner lingered in the air, a constant reminder of nightly routines. If anything, the place felt too sanitized to be unsettling, but its location told a different story. Perched on the outskirts of a sleepy town, the store was isolated, surrounded by endless fields that whispered in the wind on one side and an abandoned, crumbling road on the other. The nearest neighbor was a mile away, a lone farmhouse that rarely showed signs of life. Most nights it felt like the rest of the world had forgotten this place existed. Hours could pass without a single customer crossing the threshold. Sam used to joke that their only fear was dying of boredom. But on this particular night, something felt off. It started subtly, a prickling sensation at the back of the neck, as if someone were watching. The air seemed heavier, laden with an unspoken tension that pressed in from all sides. The fluorescent lights above buzzed incessantly, their harsh glow flickering ever so slightly, casting dancing shadows that played tricks on the eyes. Sam couldn't pinpoint why, but every instinct screamed that something was amiss. They glanced around the store. Everything looked the same. The shelves were orderly, the floor spotless, the hum of the refrigerators a constant backdrop. Yet the atmosphere had shifted, charged with an undercurrent of unease. Then, the automatic sliding doors at the entrance hissed open. Sam looked up from their phone, expecting to see a late-night customer wandering in, perhaps a trucker looking for coffee or a teenager craving snacks. But no one entered. The doors gaped open, revealing only the inky darkness beyond. The parking lot was empty, illuminated by a single flickering street lamp that cast erratic shadows across the asphalt. Frowning, Sam peered into the night. Their car sat alone under the unreliable glow, and beyond that, nothing but the vast expanse of field shrouded in darkness. The wind rustled through the tall grass, a soft whisper that seemed amplified in the stillness. Probably just the wind, Sam muttered, though doubt gnawed at the edges of their mind. The doors remained open longer than usual, almost hesitating, before sliding shut with a reluctant hiss. The sound echoed unnaturally, louder than it should have been in the empty store. They tried to shrug it off, attributing it to a faulty sensor. The doors had acted up before, after all. Yet, a lingering unease settled in their stomach, a flutter of anxiety they couldn't quite shake. Returning to their phone, Sam attempted to distract themselves with social media and mindless games. But the oppressive silence pressed in, broken only by the buzzing lights and the faint hum of refrigeration units. Even those familiar sounds seemed muted, swallowed by the heavy atmosphere. Minutes ticked by with excruciating slowness. Sam found their gaze repeatedly drawn to the security monitors, a grid of grainy black and white feeds displaying empty aisles and a deserted parking lot. Nothing out of the ordinary, yet the screens offered little comfort. Then it happened again. The automatic doors slid open with a sharp hiss. Sam's head snapped up, heart pounding. Once more, the entrance revealed only the empty night. This time, the street lamp outside flickered violently before plunging the parking lot into darkness. A chill crept into the store, the temperature dropping noticeably. They stared into the void beyond the doors, a sea of shadows where anything or nothing could be lurking. The doors remained open, the sensors seemingly defiant. Sam's mouth felt dry. "Hello?" They called out tentatively, their voice barely more than a whisper. No response. After what felt like an eternity, the doors closed. The soft thunk reverberated through the store, the sound unnaturally loud in the suffocating silence. Sam exhaled slowly, realizing they'd been holding their breath. Determined to shake off the creeping dread, Sam decided to busy themselves with restocking shelves. Activity might dispel the unsettling atmosphere. Grabbing a box of merchandise, they headed to aisle 3. As they worked, the routine tasks provided a semblance of normalcy. The rhythmic action of stacking items lulled them into a calmer state. But the quiet refused to be comforting. Instead, it amplified every creak and rustle. That's when they heard it. A faint crinkling sound, like someone handling a bag of chips. Sam paused, ears straining. The sound had come from the far end of the aisle. Peering down the row, they saw nothing unusual. The shelves stretched out, laden with products, illuminated by the steady glow of the overhead lights. "Hello?" they called out, their voice echoing softly. Silence. They resumed stacking, but their movements were slower now, each rustle of packaging making their hearts skip a beat. Then, out of the corner of their eye, they caught a glimpse of movement, a shadow darting just beyond sight. Sam spun around, scanning the area. Again, nothing. Just rows of neatly arranged goods and the sterile ambiance of the store. "Get a grip," they whispered, chastising themselves. Yet the unease only deepened. As they placed the last item on the shelf, a bag of chips toppled over, falling to the floor with a muted thud. Sam stared at it, a knot forming in their stomach. They had stacked everything carefully. There was no reason for anything to fall. Bending down, they picked up the bag, their hand trembling ever so slightly. A sudden chill swept through the aisle, and for a moment it felt as if someone was standing right behind them, breathing softly on the back of their neck. Sam whipped around, but the space was empty. Back at the counter, Sam tried to steady their nerves. They sipped a can of soda, the sugary liquid doing little to quell their anxiety. Their eyes flickered to the security monitors, scanning each feed for any sign of movement. That's when they saw it. On the monitor displaying aisle 3, a figure stood motionless, tall and indistinct, its features obscured by static or perhaps shadow. Sam blinked, leaning closer. The figure didn't move. Heart pounding, they glanced toward the actual aisle, which was visible from their vantage point. It was empty. Eyes darting back to the monitor, they saw that the figure was now closer to the camera, its form still blurred but undeniably present. A surge of fear coursed through them. Was the camera malfunctioning? Hallucination? They couldn't tear their eyes away. Suddenly the screen flickered and the figure vanished. Sam's breath caught in their throat. The store felt colder, the shadows deeper. They contemplated calling someone, a friend, the police. But what would they say? That a shadow was haunting their store? Hours crawled by. The clock on the wall ticked relentlessly, each minute feeling like an eternity. The oppressive silence was broken only by the occasional hum of machinery. At 1:53 a.m., the automatic doors chimed. Relief flooded Sam. A customer meant normalcy, a break in the unsettling monotony. A man entered, his face obscured by the hood of a dark jacket. He moved with an unnatural fluidity, footsteps soundless on the tiled floor. He didn't acknowledge Sam, heading straight toward the back of the store. "Welcome in," Sam called out, their voice wavering slightly. No response. They watched as the man disappeared down an aisle. Minutes passed, and he didn't reappear. A nagging feeling told Sam that something was wrong. Leaving the safety of the counter, they ventured into the aisles. The store seemed larger somehow, the aisles stretching longer than they should. The overhead lights flickered intermittently. "Sir, do you need help finding anything?" Sam's voice sounded small in the vastness of the store. Silence. Reaching the back of the store, they found the freezer section. One of the glass doors was ajar, a thin mist seeping out. Approaching cautiously, Sam peered inside. The man was nowhere to be seen. But on the fogged-up glass of the freezer door, a message was scrawled in dripping letters. "I'm still here." Sam stumbled back, a gasp escaping their lips. Their mind raced. How was that possible? They hadn't seen anyone leave, and the door's chime hadn't sounded again. A sudden noise, a whisper, brushed past their ear. They couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable. Mocking. Panic set in. Sam dashed back to the counter, hands shaking as they picked up the phone. They dialed 911, but the line was dead. No dial tone, just static. The lights overhead began to flicker more violently, plunging the store into alternating moments of darkness and harsh light. Shadows leaped and twisted, creating illusions of figures moving just out of sight. The whispers grew louder, emanating from all directions. They overlapped, a cacophony of unintelligible words spoken in a language Sam couldn't recognize. Covering their ears, they crouched behind the counter, eyes squeezed shut. "This isn't real," they whispered. "This isn't happening." A loud crash jolted them upright. One of the shelves had toppled over, products spilling across the floor in a chaotic heap. The whispers turned into guttural growls. Sam knew they had to get out. Grabbing their keys, they made a dash for the entrance. The automatic doors remained stubbornly shut. Frantically, they pressed the manual override, but the doors wouldn't budge. Behind them, the growling intensified. Glancing over their shoulder, they saw dark shapes emerging from the shadows, twisted forms with glowing eyes, inching closer. Desperation fueled their actions. Sam smashed the glass of the door with a fire extinguisher, shards raining down. They squeezed through the opening, ignoring the cuts from the jagged edges. Outside, the air was crisp and cold. The parking lot was bathed in the pale light of the moon, the street lamp still dark. Sam fumbled with their car keys, hands slick with blood and sweat. As they started the engine, they dared one last look at the store. The figures stood at the shattered entrance watching. Their glowing eyes pierced the darkness, and though their faces were obscured, Sam could feel their gaze, a mix of malice and something else. Hunger. They didn't wait to find out more. Tires screeched as they sped away, the store shrinking in the rearview mirror. But even as distance grew, the sense of being pursued lingered. Sam never returned to that store. They didn't call their manager, didn't explain, didn't care about the last paycheck. For weeks, sleep was elusive. Every shadow seemed to conceal a threat, every whisper of wind, a sinister voice. They moved to a new town, took a day job, surrounded themselves with people. But the memories clung like a shadow. Late at night, when darkness settled and the world grew quiet, Sam still heard it. The faint tap, tap, tap of footsteps approaching. Sometimes they'd catch a glimpse of movement in their peripheral vision, a fleeting shadow that vanished when looked at directly. And in the quiet moments between wakefulness and sleep, they'd hear the whispers. Unintelligible, yet filled with a chilling familiarity. So if you ever find yourself working alone at night, take heed. Listen closely to the silence, watch the shadows, and trust your instincts. Because sometimes the things we dismiss, the flickering lights, the unexplained sounds, the fleeting shadows, are warnings. And sometimes the darkness isn't as empty as we think. If this story sent a chill down your spine, hit subscribe, or stick around for another tale that will make you question what lurks in the shadows. Just remember, some stories are more than just fiction.